I need a do-it-yourself tube gain cell. Okay, this question of how to do something comes from Daniel in Solothurn, Switzerland. Switzerland. I'm building all my gear by myself. Good job. I have great admiration for do-it-yourselfers. My current projects are an 845 SET, single-ended triode, for those of you that don't know what SET is, monoblocks. And a preamplifier is going to follow. I love to make sure that my frequency response and phase are best as possible. Well, don't we all? So I'd love to ban all volume controls from my gear. As far as I know, you use a tube-based volume control in your BHK preamp. How do you realize this? Using a dual-controlled pentode? Can you explain this to me? Thank you very much, Paul. You're great. Well, thank you. So are you, Daniel. I mean, that's a brave thing. Good for you. I really admire people that just want to make their own stuff. That's how most of us started. So I think it's great. We don't use volume controls in our preamplifiers and our DACs. So in our analog products, we use what's called the gain cell, and they're different than in how we do each one of them. So gain cells are something kind of unique to us, and it's something I invented along, oh boy, has to be 10 years. I'm not very good with time, but maybe 10 years ago. But it's it's basically a variable gain amplifier. So while I didn't invent the technology that is used, which is called a Gilbert cell, a transconductance amplifier, what I came up with, which was a way to build a transconductance amplifier in such a way that it was applicable to audio, to high-end audio. So it's balanced input, balanced output, and it's an amplification stage where we can vary the gain of the amplifier without anything in the signal path. So in a Gilbert cell, you use a voltage that changes the way the currents work inside. And it's fairly, you can look it up. It's actually, it's kind of tricky the way it works. But that way, we don't have to have any kind of volume control physically in the path of the audio signal, if that makes sense. Now in the BHK preamp, which is what Daniel is referring to, we do something similar, though we don't use that Gilbert cell transconductance amplifier technology. It still is a way for the volume control on the front of the BHK to turn the volume up and down without the signal actually going through a pot, if you will. And the way we do it, well, it's kind of tricky. And it's kind of simple. So that's one of the reasons I went ahead and accepted this, because it's easy enough to sort of explain without much knowledge of a vacuum tube circuit. So if we look at the elements of a vacuum tube amplifier, or just a vacuum tube gain stage, which is kind of like a transistor, and transistors, as well as tubes, have three basic elements. In a transistor, it's a collector, which is what hooks up to the top part of the power supply, a base or a gate, which is kind of the input where the signal goes in and determines how much current is flowing through the device, and an emitter. And in a tube, and that's where the exit comes, depending on how you configure it. So in a tube, they're called different things. There's the plate, which is like the collector. There's the grid, which is like the base. And there's, the cathode, that's like the emitter, or source on a FET. So FETs are, drain is like a collector. And anyway, we're getting off into the weeds. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. In tubes, as well as solid state devices, The gain of the device is fairly easy to calculate. It's if we were talking about transistors, we would have a couple of resistors, one between B plus, the plus supply, through a resistor to the collector, the top of the transistor. And then on the bottom, we'd have another one on the emitter going to, say, ground, just to keep this real simple. So you got two resistors. On a tube would be the plate resistor, and then you got a cathode resistor. And then in the middle, you're telling, the signal comes in, and you see how much current flows through this string with the device in the middle. So two resistors, in the middle is this device that's acting like a valve, okay? And the ratio of the top resistor to the bottom resistor determines the gain. And again, this is very simplified, but let's say I have a 10,000 ohm resistor on the top, and I have a 1,000 ohm resistor on the bottom. I have a gain of 10,000 divided by the 1. So it's, and don't go all wiggy on me that's, well, it's actually 9 point, blah, blah. It's 10, okay? And a voltage gain of 10 is the same as 20 dB. So you've just made a 20 dB amplification stage, right? Now, we're not going to discuss feedback or any of that other stuff. What we do in a BHK is, of course, we use a, tubes have basically, they're like pairs. They're the kind of tubes we use have two amplification stages, and it acts like, and we make what we call a diff pair, a differential pair out of this tube. And what we do is using switches, we switch in different cathode resistors to vary the gain. And there's a combination of different cathode resistors, and then we have a bigger attenuator out in front that's just a real high quality resistor that goes in or doesn't go or changes its value to feed the tube. And the combination of the input attenuator and the variable cathode resistors, which changes the gain from 10 to 8 to 7 to 6 to 5 to 50 to whatever it is that we're doing with that, by a clever combination of those, we can get a full, 70, 80 dB of attenuation and gain that can easily be controlled from a front panel switch. And the sound never goes through that switch. The sound only goes through the tube and that one resistor out in the front. And it's a very clean way of doing it. Now, just real briefly without boring everybody, part of the problem is because it's a diff pair, you have to maintain that sucker's balance. And so if you get the balance off even a little bit, you'll get popping and So we have to have then a complicated servo that keeps everything going, and it's, oh my God. It's a complicated little circuit, but that's how the gain cell in a BHK works. So, Daniel, I hope that helps, give you a little bit of an idea of what we do. Good luck with your projects. Hang in there. I'll talk to you later. Bye.